I'm going to tell you something that is very evident in this space and on social media and all that. And I think it's what has been one of the biggest frustrations as I have been a content creator. It's its own struggle to come up with content every day. Toxic, narcissistic relationships, which I have completely outgrown the desire to do that, which I've been talking about. But at the same time, women don't, maybe you, don't respond to posts and content that are about you. It's really interesting. So if I post something about toxic, narcissistic abuse, something that's really just like putting it all on them and their toxicity and, you know, that kind of ranting and raving stuff, that kind of content always does really well. Lots of engagement, all of it. Then I can follow it with a post about, hey, have you thought about that you could be the problem? Or that you actually, here's the work that you need to focus on. Those posts basically flop. There's like nothing. It is something I've been playing around with to see. And at the same time, what's frustrating as a content creator is I don't necessarily love that part of my role. Like if I had somebody that could do it better than me, I'd probably hire them on the spot. You know, I do try to curate the content and be very mindful about what goes on there. But if I'm not writing about just narcissistic traits and behaviors and all of that, it doesn't seem to get bumped up into the algorithm, which is the game of social media. So it's been a process for me to realize, like, I have, 50, I have to check because I don't remember. So 59.3K followers on Instagram. And on a good day, it's maybe like 2,000 likes on there. And it will be shown to, you know, like, I'm just going to look at my last one just to give you a little inside scoop on this. Is just how it works. If you are a content creator yourself or you have a business, so you get this. So with that many followers and only just over 4,700 people were shown one of my last posts out of that many followers. So either there's a whole bunch of people on there that are just sitting ducks, not doing anything, which is true. Have you noticed that when you are, you're following someone and then you're like, wait, I haven't seen anything from them in a long time. Or you see them in your feed and you're like, who is this? Like, I didn't even remember this. And you see you're following them, but you haven't seen a thing from them when they've been posting. This is the crappy thing about social media, especially, just the whole thing, the algorithm. So this is just part of the game that we have to play. But back to the original point was that what I really want to be talking about and feel inspired by is helping women break their relationship addiction. Because working in this space predominantly with women in toxic, narcissistic, abusive relationships on varying degrees of severity, it's very clear that they're obsessed and they're addicted to what the relationship is. They're addicted to the rush, the chaos, the trying to get something from their partner that they did not get in childhood. And so the way I see it is because there's been times when it's like, why is it so hard for women to get out? Why is it such a hard thing? And we know there's roots to who we choose in relationship from our childhoods, right? That there's roots in there. And this is basic psychology 101, like we will tend toward choosing a partner of the opposite sex that, mimics the parent of that same sex. It's not always the case. Sometimes if we're women and we have a partner, it's needs from our mother we didn't get met, but typically it's from our father wound. And so we're trying to get daddy wounds healed through our intimate relationships. And again, while this is based on psychology, who wants to be in a relationship from that? Right? If you're really in a healthy place, you realize, no, I don't want to expect things out of someone that are my job to heal. And relationships are supposed to be healing. They're supposed to be a comfort and a respite and a soft place to fall. They're not supposed to be something we have to protect ourselves from, or armor up around, or toughen up, tolerate, right? And so if a relationship is really hard to leave, so the harder it is for a woman to get out, the more deeply rooted the connection to their childhood is to this relationship or this type of man that they keep bringing in. Because it's not who comes into our lives, it's who we commit to, right? It's who we are like, oh, let's have a relationship. Let's move in 2 months. Let's get married and have kids in 6 months. Let's buy a house in a year. And they just keep going and going and going with it. And then they're 2 years in and they're like, I'm in an abusive relationship and now I have kids with this person, or this is my second marriage and I've done it again and now I've got to try and get out of this again with now my kids and perhaps his kids that I love and care for. We have to stop. There comes a point to where you have to stop and see your own patterning and see your own bullshit and be so sick and tired of your own shit that you will just drop to your knees and say, all right, I get it. It's me. I have to figure me out because these patterns keep coming. And no matter how hard I have tried and worked on myself, I'm still here. My life is not getting better. In fact, it is just getting worse and worse. And we have to be able to admit that we alone are not able to recover and move through this on our own. So the first step and the first agreement we must make in healing and recovery from toxic relationships is making the commitment to make ourselves the top priority. So our healing journey and recovery journey becomes number one on the list. This is even when it comes to parenting and other decisions you have to make regarding other people. It's factoring yourself in that as well. All right. And we have spent our lives putting everyone else first and going, how will this affect this person? How will this person feel? How will this person react if I do this? Instead of like, what the fuck do I want? Like, what would actually make me happy in this? What do I think is the right way to move forward? Do I need to get 500 opinions before I can just move forward with something, right? We second guess ourselves a lot. So one of the things that also has become very obvious in this, because I've coached so many women in my groups, is that they are obsessed and fixated on their partners. And so the work around this is we have to, again, admit, I am sick, I am unwell, I'm unhealthy. This is toxic as fuck. And here I am, I'm still messing in it. I'm not packing every single thing that I possibly can fit in my car and getting the hell out of here. Right? And there are times when it is that bad, you need to just do that and not worry about, I'm not giving legal advice, but there are times when you've just got to go. You've got to just go. And just seeing this so much with women and seeing how hard it is for them to pull themselves out of this. And this is one of the reasons why I don't offer coaching anymore around narcissistic abuse. However, if you are in one of these relationships and you're ready to focus on your own work so that leaving just becomes that natural next step, I can coach you on that. But the focus and commitment is on your work. We're not in coaching to talk about them, what they're doing, what they're not doing, their manipulation, all their chaos. You are not talking anything about that. The focus is always about, here's what I'm feeling, here's where I'm stuck, here's where I keep bumping up against, here's my pattern that I'm seeing, here is the emotions that I'm not feeling, and we're working on that. We're not working on what he's doing or not doing. And even women who have left still do that. And so I have to gently, or sometimes a little more aggressively or directly, bring their focus back to themselves, because it's so easy to just fixate on them and what they're doing and like, why? If when you get to a level where you see the insanity of that, like, realize, wow, like, holy shit, right? How much energy, focus, time, our years, our good years, our youth have we given? We're aging, we're bitter, we're angry, right? We're burned out. Our body is screaming at us. And here we are still talking about what he's doing and trying to get sympathy for what he's doing. and venting. Like if you are in this place, maybe you're sick and tired of hearing yourself as well. You have to get sick and tired of your shit. You just have to. So when women message me, I've had to turn messages on and off quite often on Instagram because, like, ladies, if you have been following me and if this has been you, this is not to, shame anyone, but this is for everyone. Like if you see someone on Instagram or you follow their podcast and you think, oh my God, like I need their advice, don't go seeking it in their DMs. Like if you want the help, get coaching with them or purchase something of theirs. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like I make sure I do not do that to people. Like I don't go into their DMs and share my life story and hope to get tips. Like no. So if you have done that, you likely won't get a response from me, or I'll say, hey, this is a little too deep to going into on Instagram. Here's a way you can book a consultation or apply to work with me. So when those DMs come in, well, they're paragraphs and paragraphs of what insanity their spouse is doing. And some of it is just plain like, I mean, my jaw even drops. I'm like, holy shit, like you're in here messaging this when you should be like moving mountains to get help and support to get out of this situation. So ladies, there is no excuse. If you want to heal, yes, you're going to have to invest time. You're going to have to invest money on some level. Maybe it's all you can do is find a good therapist that has the background and specialty that you need, that understands these dynamics, because that's the first one. Someone that understands relationship addiction, codependency, toxic relationships, why we end up tolerating what we do, why we end up in violent situations or with abusive, toxic men. You need to work with someone who understands that, not only professionally, who's had the training and the experience, who has also experienced it themselves and got themselves out the other side of that. It's not easy to find someone like that. It really isn't. And so that can be tricky. So instead of focusing on what he's doing or not doing, the focus needs to be, why am I still here? And if you're out, why did I stay for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 35 years? I think 35 was one of the longest I experienced with women I've worked with. And then you have to make sure that you're healing that pattern within yourself, because otherwise you're going to be super comfortable when someone else with similar characteristics comes along. You think, oh, this is different than the last one. And wham, bam, eventually a couple years in, you're like, well, no, this is actually just the same because you haven't healed your internal wounds around someone who's avoidant, someone who's wishy-washy, someone who won't commit, someone who's shady, someone who lies, someone who doesn't have their shit together and wants a mommy. Like you will start getting back into those because you have this deep-seated need to want to help a man, help him, heal him, help him become his best self, because all he ever needed was you coming into his life with your undying love to support and bump him up so he can do better, right? This is the other thing. It's a rescue addiction. So we have to see our own tendencies and our own addictions. So it can be addictions in the love relationship space, as well as typically with women who have these behaviors in their relationships. It also mirrors other areas of addiction. So it could be food addiction, eating disorders, binge eating, sugar, alcohol, shopping, work, and then obsessing about a man, the fixation on a man. It's insanity. Like, ladies, if you are done with this and you want something else to focus on, I can help you with this. I am taking applications for my one-on-one 3-month reclaimed coaching program. So I only have this available as a one-on-one intensive. So you'll work closely with me through the pillars of recovery from these patterns. You can head to leanneoten.com/apply, or I'll leave the link in the show notes of this episode if you'd like to apply for one of those spaces. We will start in June, so I'm taking applications now for that. So we need to remember we cannot heal until we admit how bad it really is, and until we get so sick and tired of our own behavior and the pain and seeing that things are only getting worse. They're not getting better, despite all of the things that you have been doing. And I know for sure you've been doing a lot because I know how it works. We think we are responsible for their healing, their work. We need to therapize them and coach them and guide them to becoming their full selves. What the fuck? What? That's when we're like, oh my God, like, why am I not focusing on what I need to be doing? Where did this all start? And it starts rooted in our childhood is where it started. So when we can admit that we are the one that needs to heal, we take our power back. And I'm at a point where I will not work with women who are not at that place. Like, you need to be in a place of readiness where you want to put these patterns behind you. And it means that you will put in the work. You will set the boundaries. You will say no. You will prioritize yourself. You will start bringing more meaning and purpose and goals and vision into your life and working toward that instead of trying to fix a man or find a man or change a man or whatever, whether you're with one or not. We have to realize our own unhealthy patterns, and women are addicted to the toxic relationships. It becomes an addiction. And one of the ways we determine addiction is this, so this is typically in like a substance or alcohol addiction, but I'm applying it to relationships or any addiction, because we can have an addiction to just about anything, honestly. It doesn't have to be alcohol or drugs. But is this addiction, dependency, so if it's relationship-wise, is it negatively impacting one or more areas of my life in a significant way? So you can journal on that and write out your mental health, your physical health, your other relationships, your career, your ability to bring in the income that you need to bring in, your ability to run a business and do what you need to do with that. Is it affecting your physical health? And just list out all the areas and other relationships, your money, all of it. How is this tie to this person impacting all of those areas? And here's the thing. If you are in the relationship, do this exercise. But if you're not, you can still do it in a way that's like, how am I allowing this person to still impact these areas? Even if it's just my peace, like my mental well-being. Is he still taking up a lot of room in my head when I'm thinking about why is he doing this or not doing that, or why is he not doing it this way? And what is, it takes up so much mental space because we're still trying to fix the situation. And we couldn't do it in it. So what makes you think that we can do it out of it, right? So the last question I'll leave you with is, who do you need to be the woman who no longer tolerates toxic relationship patterns, who no longer self-sacrifices, who no longer says yes when she means no, who no longer silences herself to keep the peace, who can, step into her no and have those limits and boundaries, and who can prioritize her peace and well-being above all else. This is the work. It's not about changing them or diagnosing them or getting them into therapy or reading more and more books and underlining the paragraphs that you want him to read or that he should read. Because you could even be reading a book and be like starting it for yourself, and then you're like, oh, highlighting how he needs to read this, right? We need to do this for ourselves and only for ourselves. So if you are still in the relationship, you still do this work, you work the process, because as a result, if the relationship continues to worsen and if you are experiencing violence and abuse and narcissism in your partner, it's not going to change. That's just a part of the acceptance. So then it's, well, if I continue to stay, how am I going to manage myself in this, if that's my choice? Or how am I going to get myself out of this situation? And through your own work, that's the end result. It becomes very clear. But you have to commit to you. And so many women, they think that they're committing to their own work, but they're actually not. right? They think they're doing the work by reading a book and going and venting at therapy, and then when I ask them, well, how much further along are you with that? And it's like, I'm not. And is it getting better? No, it's getting worse. And we have to be able to admit what I'm doing and what I have been doing all these years is not working. And if it's not working, then we need to do different. Because as the quote says, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And when we really grasp that, we realize, well, I'm doing all the things. I'm doing trauma therapy and EMDR, and I'm reading books, and I'm taking courses, and I'm in this support group, and I'm in that support group, and I'm, working through my childhood trauma, and I have been for 6 to 10 years. Well, where's that gotten you? And I've never heard a woman say, well, it was enough to get me out of the situation. And I'm not saying that isn't enough for some. But if you're listening and you resonate with this and you want to break free from these patterns within yourself so you never end up in something like this ever again, realize that it starts with you committing to you. It has nothing to do with a man. It has nothing to do with finding the right relationship. And we seem to think that that's the answer to our happiness because we have so much pain within ourselves to begin with that we think that a man is going to come in and make us happy and make everything better. And we have to do the opposite and make ourselves better before we even entertain a relationship. And we have to continue that work even if we are in a relationship. You don't abandon those parts of yourself. You keep on doing what helps you thrive and flourish. All right, so that wraps up what I wanted to share on this episode. I hope that it has served you and helped you in some way, and I will chat with you in the next one. Take care.